The Brutalist is being shown in 70mm IMAX theaters. But when I heard it was shot using VistaVision, I got really excited. Excited to see The Brutalist on the big screen, but also excited because now we get to talk about VistaVision. Hey, I'm Mike. I studied film, I work in TV, and I love movies. Before we get into VistaVision, let's quickly talk about The Brutalist. It'll help us understand why the filmmakers chose VistaVision over traditional filming methods. The Brutalist is about architect and Holocaust survivor Laszlo Toth, played by Adrien Brody, and follows his journey as he flees his home in Budapest and arrives in the US. Brutalist refers to the type of architecture Laszlo designs. It was popular in the 50s and is characterized by minimalist construction that showcase the bare building materials and structural elements over decorative design. Along the way, he crosses paths with industrialist Harrison Van Buren, played by Guy Pearce, who commissions Laszlo to build a community center in rural Pennsylvania in his brutalist style. The story begins in 1947 and takes us all the way to the early 60s, with a tiny little bit that takes place in the 1980s. Filming took place mostly in Budapest, but some scenes were shot in Carrara, Italy, in the granite quarries. It is a beautifully shot film. As I mentioned, cinematographer Crawley, along with director Brady Corbet, made the decision to shoot The Brutalist in VistaVision. So what is VistaVision? By the early 50s, the film industry was in a recession, due in most part by the popularity of television. Film studios were scrambling to come up with new, eye-popping technologies to lure audiences back into theaters. Sound familiar? By 1953, 20th Century Fox had begun shooting their films in CinemaScope. CinemaScope used a special lens to compress an image that was 2.5 times wide as it was tall onto 35mm film stock. It also used a special lens to project that image onto a curved screen. CinemaScope was characteristically narrow and wide. While providing a beautiful wide image, theaters that presented films in CinemaScope would experience warping around the edges and forfeit seats that wouldn't be able to comfortably see such a wide screen. Remember, this was the era of Academy 35 aspect ratio. Theaters were set up to project a square frame. CinemaScope required theaters to change the shape of their screen and remove seats that wouldn't have a good view. VistaVision was Paramount's response to CinemaScope. Rather than pull the 35mm film past the lens vertically, as cameras typically do, VistaVision cameras pulled the film past the lens horizontally. This allowed for a larger, higher resolution image to be captured on the same 35mm film stock. Typical 35mm film shot vertically uses 4 sprocket holes of film per frame. By turning the film horizontally, the camera is able to capture an image that's 8 sprocket holes wide and produce a negative nearly double the size of traditional 35mm, while still maintaining the 35mm format. Here's a photo of the VistaVision camera used on The Brutalist. See how the mag is horizontal? We're used to that mag being attached vertically. The VistaVision negative contained nearly twice as much information and produced a much clearer print. And best of all, its aspect ratio was somewhere around 1.5 to 1, meaning theaters wouldn't have to reconfigure their screens and seating options to accommodate the film. Paramount technicians initially called VistaVision Lazy 8. Lazy for the horizontal film path and 8 for the 8 sprocket holes it used. At the time, Paramount's marketing team made digs at CinemaScope as uncomfortably wide, and their VistaVision process would emphasize that height is just as important as width. The first VistaVision film was White Christmas with Bing Crosby, and was a huge success. Probably the most famous director to embrace VistaVision, though, was Alfred Hitchcock. He used VistaVision to film To Catch a Thief, The Man Who Knew Too Much, Vertigo, and North by Northwest. For a while, the two technologies competed for dominance, as seen in this advertisement. That's B-movie actress Marla English on the left, posing with a VistaVision camera, and on the right is Marilyn Monroe holding a CinemaScope adapter lens. By the late 50s, though, the thrill of VistaVision wore off. CinemaScope hung on until about 1967. Both technologies eventually gave way to Panavision cameras and Eastman color film stock, which took hold of Hollywood and eventually became the industry standard until the digital era. But VistaVision wasn't forgotten. Because of its high resolution, the camera technology was revived by special effect houses, specifically one that would go on to become Industrial Light and Magic. That's right, VistaVision was used for all the special effects for Star Wars. Because of its high resolution, it was a perfect fit for matting. Matting was a process which allowed actors' movements to be integrated with pre-shot backgrounds. In the case of Star Wars, they matted the moving footage of the actors into a hyper-realistic painting which served as the background. VistaVision remained the standard camera technology for special effects photography for the next 2 decades. Director Brady Corbet says they use VistaVision because most of the film takes place in the period where VistaVision was king, and seemed like an obvious choice to capture the feel of the 50s. Cinematographer Crawley confesses that while most of The Brutalist was shot on VistaVision, there were in fact parts that were shot on traditional 35mm and 16mm for some handheld shots. It's understandable, I mean, look at that thing. It's not exactly a handheld camera. Interestingly, they even use Betacam for the epilogue scene, which takes place in the 1980s. While I was watching The Brutalist, there are several scenes where I really noticed the difference. You may notice it too. Watch for the POV driving scenes specifically. At first, I couldn't quite figure out why they seem so disorienting. I think it's because the shot draws your attention to the center of the frame, and in your periphery vision, you don't see the edge of the frame at all. You're encompassed in the film. Also, you'll notice VistaVision shine in the shots within the quarry in Italy. They really use the height VistaVision affords them to great effect. Same goes for the shots within the construction site. Brutalist architecture notoriously had high ceilings. With any widescreen technology, because the width is so much greater than the height, you are acutely aware of the space off-screen, the black bars. But with VistaVision, the aspect ratio envelops you to the point where you're almost within the film, which is why I think you should try to see The Brutalist in 70mm or on the largest screen available to you. The Brutalist was transferred to 70mm for projection in IMAX theaters, and I highly recommend you not wait for it to come out on video. The film will draw you in a way you just can't get at home. Here are some other production notes I came across that I thought you guys might find interesting. The shooting schedule was just 34 days, and the film cost under $10 million. That is surprising to me for a couple reasons. First, the epic scale of the film. It reads as a much more expensive film, but also, they shot a 3.5-hour movie in 34 days? I'm told director Brady Corbet doesn't shoot a lot of coverage. What you see on the screen is what they shot. That means they didn't give the editor many options, but that also means he carefully edited the film in his head prior to production. The Brutalist has, at the time of this recording, won 3 Golden Globes. Brody won for Best Actor, Brady Corbet won for Best Director, and it won the Golden Globe for Best Drama. It is also nominated for 9 Oscars, and I would be surprised if it didn't pull a statue in at least one category. My money's on Best Picture and Best Actor for Brody. It is a beautifully complex film that deserves all the accolades it receives. Thanks for watching, everyone. As always, film is about community, so please comment below. I'm Mike, and I love film.